Name me one country where 300k buys you 3 brand new income properties with zero national restrictions on short-term rentals and also a golden visa attached. I'm in Brazil and I've decided to invest my own capital here after walking away from Dubai, Spain and the US. Most international investors haven't taken this market seriously yet, but in this video I'll tell you why you should and exactly how it is to invest here. In my line of work, that is international sales, international business consulting, I had the chance to travel all across the world, especially across Europe, across 11 states in the US, and also Central America and many different countries in South America, but as well South Africa and the UAE. And every trip, the same question came to my mind, that is this the right place to invest in real estate? But every time there was something off. Low yield, high real estate prices, limited possibilities for diversification and creating a portfolio, and hidden regulations. So when I came to Brazil, I found a country that ticked all those boxes. So finally I find the option that was balanced on every aspect that matters. But today there is a lot of ignorance circulating around Brazil, and there is a little knowledge regarding this market around internationally. Let me start with a key number, $5,500 per month. With that sum, in the United States you are in the middle class. In Europe you live quite well, but no luxury whatsoever. In Brazil instead, that makes you top 1%. That's very, very key, because Brazilians on average make $675 per month, and 67% of the population makes less than 2,500 reais per month. That implies that, based on statistics, at least 27,000 reais per month will put you in the top 1% of the country. Same money, different country, different life, one plane ticket. Let's get back to real estate for a second. For example, with 80k in Madrid, what can you buy? A garage. And what can you buy in New York with 80k? Probably half a garage, right? But besides the jokes, I mean, here in Brazil, the game is totally different. When I was starting to invest, I compared the stock market and real estate. So the advantage of the stock market is that you can put money into ETFs and get diversified across hundreds or thousands of companies, right? But with real estate, unless you put a lot of money, you cannot diversify across brand new properties in Europe or the States. So for example, with 300k in Europe, you get, if you want to get 3 properties, you might get very old properties, like decades old properties that will demand a lot of maintenance down the line. So in Europe or in the States, it's extremely hard, if not impossible, to get a portfolio, to create a portfolio of properties with around 300k. However, here in Brazil, with 300k, yes, you can get 3 brand new different properties in 3 different markets or sub-markets, okay? So why is that possible? Because of the product types and the culture. What do I mean with this? Brazilians, they prefer having their own space and privacy over having a lot of square meters or square feet. That's key to understand, because developers here, construction is booming. Developers are focusing more and more on compact products. I mean, products that apartments or studio or 1-bedroom apartments and so on, they are below 40 square meters. Why? Because those are the products that gives you the highest return per square meter or square foot. And this is key to understand. While in Europe, this type of product is not that common because Europeans, they want to live in a bigger space and they can sacrifice their own privacy and accept to live with other 2-3 people if they have a low income, for example. But here, they accept to live in a smaller space and win their privacy. So this allows the market to have compact products. And these compact products can be found below the $100,000 thresholds still today in the main cities like São Paulo or Florianopolis. Compact units can have a performance of up to 57% higher. For example, a one-bedroom apartment or compact apartment can give you 57% higher return and rent per square meter compared to a 3-bedroom apartment in the same city. And the best news, there are so many projects oriented towards and designed for short-term rentals on Airbnb or other platforms. But being more specific and going to the practice, how do you invest in Brazilian real estate? I mean, what's the key strategy? So now let me address a point that most foreigners get wrong. How do you buy property? How do you pay for property in Brazil as an international investor? Cash, not credit. Why? Because mortgages in Brazil, they are for a rate of around 12% per year. That comes very steep, very expensive for us Europeans or for Americans that are used to 3 or 5% per year approximately. So to invest in Brazil, you need to be liquid. That's the entry condition. Of course, there are alternatives to the traditional bank mortgages like consórcio here in Brazil, but that's a different topic for a different video. So when you want to invest in Brazilian real estate, there are 2 main ways. The first path is investing the traditional way, so to buy from the developer, which is imóvel incorporado, okay, in Portuguese. So basically you put 10% or 20% money down payment at the beginning, and then this cycle, the construction cycle, lasts typically 3 years, okay, since the launch of the project. And then at delivery you pay 70%, so 30% along the construction cycle and 70% when they give you the keys to the property, okay? But along the construction, you will typically pay the INCC or CUB, okay, which is the index for the increase of construction costs, material costs. The second model, the second way to invest in Brazilian real estate is called SPE, which is in Portuguese, Sociedade de Propósito Específico, or in English, SPV, Special Purpose Vehicle. In this investment model, you're not just a customer of the developer, you are a partner of the project. So you put, and other people put their own money to invest in the construction of the building, okay? So the advantage of this model is that you pay usually, typically 30 to 40% less than a similar project in the incorporado, so the traditional model that I just presented before. That's a big discount that comes with a downside risk. So it's a more risky option because there are sometimes capital calls along the construction. So if the initial projection cost is exceeded, you need to put more money than what you forecasted at the beginning when you invested. But this additional risk can be a great trade-off in many situations, depending on the project and the location and so on. In my case, I just invested in a property that cost me 438,000 reais, where literally at 100 meters distance, there was a similar property comparable for 769,000 reais. I mean, it's worth taking the risk in that case, but it depends on a case-by-case basis. SPE, incorporado, ready units or off-plan, each option has its place. But what's right for you depends entirely on your investor profile, your liquidity, your timeline, and your exit strategy, among other factors. So this is the conversation to have before even looking at some opportunity here in Brazil. let's now talk about the short-term rental advantage. On the other side of the Atlantic, we have Europe that is, and also the US, they are tightening the grip on regulations and restrictions that apply to short-term rentals. I'm quoting as examples, for example, New York that has banned Airbnb starting from 2023, and 90% of listings have dropped and exited the market. And also Barcelona that from 2028 will start to ban Airbnb short-term rentals. I mean, this is a growing trend in these developed markets. Why? Because, I mean, wages are locked in a low level. For example, in Spain, wages are very low and people are getting afraid that these short-term listings, they will take units out of their long-term rental market and increase their prices. I'm not here to discuss whether this is a correct reasoning or not. I'm here to look at where can I put my money and where is the best place to invest in the world. Here in Brazil, the trend is completely opposite. So Brazil is a short-term rental friendly market where entire projects are designed for Airbnb rentals. In São Paulo, there are hundreds of projects that have been delivered or are in construction. Here, the south of Brazil is still not known by so many foreigners. Yes, it is known in South America, but there is a great misconception about Brazil. For example, here in Balneário Camboriú is being constructed the Senna Tower, so a tower dedicated to Ayrton Senna. Why that is interesting? Because it's gonna be the tallest residential building in the world. So the question is, does this look a favela to you? My invitation is already saying, come here and see by yourself. In Brazil, I'm not saying there are zero restrictions for Airbnb or short-term rentals, but there are no restrictions at a national level. There are only at a building level. So there are some buildings where there are more focused projects that are more focused on family living. And these people, these owners, they don't want Airbnb people or random people getting in the building so frequently. And there are other projects which are booming right now with a focus on short-term rentals or on owners that want to buy to rent, okay? So the only restriction is at a building level. So if 60% of the owners want to do short-term rentals, it's gonna be approved with no other restrictions. That's good news for all the international investors that want to invest in short-term rentals. Foreigners have a common misconception about Brazil. They think that it's all favelas, crime and jungle, but it all depends on where you go. It depends on the location and on the state, on the city, and on the neighborhood within the city. Now we are in Santa Catarina, which is the safest state in Brazil, with comparable homicide rates to those you can find in the United States. So besides being the safest state in Brazil and one of the safest areas in all of South America, this place is characterized by the continuous growth in population and its economy. So we have here migration inflows coming from the rest of Brazil and also from abroad. When you walk around Santa Catarina and cities here around summer, you will find an army of Argentinians and other foreigners that get here on vacation. However, Santa Catarina is still not known by Europeans and Americans. And I'm betting that when they will find out how it is life here, they will flock to the state and buy real estate in massive quantities. That's inevitable, especially in this geopolitical agitated area where high net worth investors are looking to a safe haven where to invest. Because everyone is saying, millionaires are escaping the UK because of taxes, millionaires are escaping the US and so on, but where are these people going? I mean, this is a great option to invest. Also, because in Brazil, if you invest at least 1 million reais, that is around $200,000 now, you can get the golden visa, so the residence permit as a real estate investor. That threshold lowers in the north and northeastern regions of Brazil to 700K reais. We are talking about one of the best value for money residencies in the world right now. For example, in Europe, Greece and Malta, they are much more expensive for getting the golden visa. Another important point is that property rights for foreigners here in Brazil are very strong, because once you register your property to your name or to your company name at the cartório, which is the local notary office, you can enjoy the same property rights of Brazilians, of local people. What do you need to buy real estate in Brazil? So you need, first of all, you need a CPF, which is the Brazilian tax ID. It's key not just to buy property, but to do anything serious in the country, even to get a SIM card for your phone. Then you need your passport, of course. And then what other documents are key? If you are single, your birth certificate with apostilled and also with a sworn translation in Portuguese. In case you are married, you need your marriage certificate, apostilled and sworn translated in Portuguese. Then a tool that is super strongly advised to use is the local no-resident bank account. We have a dedicated video regarding the local no-resident bank account. You can find it in the card here. But then also you need to use a foreign exchange rate house or a foreign exchange account. Why? Because if you send a SWIFT payment from abroad into your local non-resident bank account, what happens is that you'll get a steep cost for the foreign exchange, up to even 3% in some cases. So that's all money that you throw away. Instead, if you use a foreign exchange account, you can reduce that 2-3% below the 1% threshold, thus making it a much more efficient process to send money to Brazil. And also, by using the local non-resident account, you can control every payment you make, and also you can receive rent from your tenants and to pay all the expenses for the property. That allows you to keep control and not delegate or not depending on third parties for your real estate investments. A critical warning now: do not use Wise or other fintech solutions to send high amounts to Brazil to buy real estate. Why? Because of two issues. If you send over $10,000 as a payment to Brazil, your payment might get stuck in the way because they are going to ask you for more documents, for more explanation, and so on and so forth. And the risk this implies is that you might get delays on your payments, and that implies a risk of paying high fines, because in Brazilian contract for real estates, it's not that uncommon to find 1% per month as a fine or on delayed payments. The second issue is that if when you send payments, there are no exchange contract registered formally, when you will have to sell the property, you will get some issues along the way by not having this formal foreign exchange of euros or dollars into Brazilian reais. So be extremely careful about how you set up your payments buying real estate in Brazil. Before getting to Brazil, I analyzed several different countries, specifically Spain. And that what I found is that, for example, in Spain, there are few great opportunities with many investors looking for opportunities all the time. And the stock of real estate in Spain is extremely old, like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. And that can imply a lot of maintenance down the line. And there is an even big issue over there. So the Spanish law doesn't favor owners at all. It favors today still ocupas, so squatters, people that get into apartment, break into apartment and occupy these properties and create a nightmare for the owners. In Brazil, you do not have that problem whatsoever. Why? Because here in Brazil, it's almost impossible to occupy a property like these brand new properties. They come with 24/7 security, tens of cameras in the building, and all the locks and so on and so forth. I mean, it's almost impossible. You need Tom Cruise to occupy such a real estate unit right here. I'm not saying it's wrong to invest there. It's an amazing country, actually one of my favorite countries, but still it's worth looking beyond what's still currently that famous, like Spain, the US, or other countries, or the UAE especially. That's another one. I mean, I wouldn't invest in a place that is permanently located in a continuous heat zone where a war can break out from a day to another. So while there are countries with few opportunities and many investors, here in Brazil, there are so many opportunities. Brazil has the opposite problem. Not that it's hard to find a good opportunities, but on the other side, it's so easy to find great opportunities that you get lost among them. That's exactly why we created Grow Abroad Real Estate. We provide strategic consulting and end-to-end support for liquid international investors that want to enter the Brazilian real estate market successfully. We are not brokers, and especially we do not push you any specific property. We work exclusively for the buyer, and it's our role to make sure you make informed decisions and you avoid all the common mistakes that foreign investors make when investing in Brazil. Our strategic role is paid by the investor because we work for the investor only, and that alignment is everything. If you want to know more about investing in Brazil, subscribe, like. I'm Lorenzo, and I'll see you in the next video.